All right, I'm going to get us started. My name is Carol Peters, and I'm proud to serve as the president and CEO of United Way Next. Ivy Cirillo is out sick this afternoon, so I'm going to be handling the technology and some of the housekeeping. So we do have a couple volunteers from our United Way Next Board of Directors and Engage and Exchange Committee. We've got Paul DeBassio, Ann Fox, and Barb Wentworth, and when it's appropriate, they'll introduce themselves. For housekeeping, we are recording the session for anyone who's missing it today. And so for those of you who are listening in afterwards, we're grateful that you're taking the time to be a part of this session. There will be time at the end for Q&A. We're going to hear from our guest speakers first, and then we'll open it up for Q&A, which will be facilitated by Ann Fox. You're welcome to put your questions in the chat as we go, or you can unmute when we get to that part of the presentation. In addition, at the end, we do a survey. So when you close out of the Zoom room today, we would ask that you watch your screen to take that quick survey because we value your input in all the programming that we prepare for our United Way Next community. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Paul DeBassio, our 2025 United Way Next board chair. Welcome.
Thank you, Carol, and welcome everybody. I am Paul DeBassio. I'm currently serving as the board chair for United Way Next, but I did spend 20 years of my career in the United Way Network, many of those in Boston as Chief Development Officer, but also 5 years with United Way Worldwide as EVP and Chief Investor Relations Officer. So I got to see the work of the public policy and advocacy team firsthand while at United Way Worldwide. And one of my favorite times at United Way Worldwide was what we should just call Hill Day, is where a lot of local United Way leaders descended on DC, descended on United Way Worldwide to Hill Day. And I know you're going to hear a little bit more about how that's been working recently and what's happening this July for the Capitol Hill Day. But that was always an exciting time at United Way Worldwide, bringing together so many people from across the network to have a common purpose. But I really learned the value of public policy and advocacy while I was at United Way Mass Bay. And some of you may know Jeff Haywood. At the time, he was my counterpart. He was the Chief of External Affairs. He's now the CEO of United Way in Orlando, Florida. But Jeff was also a former state rep in Massachusetts. And as a fundraiser, Jeff used to say to me, Paul, you can never raise enough money to solve these problems. We need this connection with our federal government, our state government. So he had that personal view from there. And the example I can use as the value of that type of relationship was we brought the Housing First model to Boston, and we needed to raise an additional $1 million in order to pilot that program in the city of Boston. We did that, and after 3 years of successfully showing the value of the pilot, the program, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts invested $65 million in housing across the Commonwealth. So the United Way was a seed in that advocacy, that public policy, that work that we did with the state around housing turned into a $65 million investment. And again, I could never raise that kind of money to solve that problem. So I just wanted to share that story as I introduce our two guest speakers today. Barbara Saverino is the Senior Director of Public Policy and Advocacy at United Way Worldwide, and Josh Dickson is the Senior VP for Public Policy and Advocacy at United Way Worldwide. So really happy to have them here today to hear more about what's been happening in this space from United Way Worldwide perspective, and really hoping that you can walk away with some actions you can take in your own communities. So I'm going to turn it over to Barbara and to Josh. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Paul. Really appreciate that introduction, and thank you for all of your service and great work. And thank you, Carol, and everyone for having us here. It's great to be with you all and to see some familiar faces. I know some folks were able to be at the meet and greet that we had here in Alexandria over the last month or so. And so we're excited for today's presentation and hoping to see as many of you as possible with us for Hill Day and for our advocacy forum, which we'll talk about in a little bit, where we are going to touch on all those things that Paul talked about. And I think just can't underscore how important of a time it is for our legislators and our policymakers to hear from us. There's a tremendous amount of change afoot in the overall public policy landscape in our country at the federal level. And anytime there's a lot of change at the federal level, it has downstream effects at the state level. And I think as folks who have a tremendous amount of experience in United Way, and who have leadership experience in your local communities, your voices as advocates are honestly some of the most valuable. And I will say, for us who work at United Way Worldwide, our legislators on the Hill, they want to hear a lot more from you than they want to hear from me. My address, my zip code is 20001 in Washington, D.C. I don't have formal federal representation. Um, but your members of Congress and senators, they want to hear the most from their constituents, and even more so from constituents who come from with connections to the community and connections with really trusted organizations. And one of the reasons why I came to United Way after previous jobs in my career was because when I was working in politics, I saw the power of United Way. And whenever I was working for a cabinet secretary, or when I was working for the president or whomever it was, when we needed to go to a local community and understand that community and understand the key stakeholders, I would just call the United Way, and I would reach out and say, hey, who are the key people? What do I need to know about the business community here? What about the nonprofit community? What about philanthropy? What about the key issues? Because United Ways, we're always at the crux of problem solving and always addressing those local issues. And that's one of the beautiful things about United Way is we have our consensus sort of impact areas, but every United Way does their work on the issues impacting their community. And that's why United Way has been so impactful over 137 years. I don't need to sell you all on this, but I'm just underscoring why your voices are so important in the advocacy space. And for anybody who's tuning into the recording as well, I find that we are able to get meetings with Republicans and Democrats alike. There are very few organizations that can get meetings as quickly and as easily as United Way, because people are interested to hear what we have to bring to the table. And we're not giving them any money either. We're a 501c3. We can't give political donations, but we still have a seat at the table because of that community voice that we have. And so many policymakers have a connection to their United Way. I was just in a meeting with Senator Rick Scott's staff earlier today, and Senator Scott was on the United Way board. Senator Scott worked really closely with United Ways in Florida to get to support the child tax credit in legislation that was coming down the pike in the fall, which didn't end up passing, but which we're hoping to see some elements of in the current tax bill. But they were excited to work with us, and they're meeting with their Florida United Way folks soon. So just want to illustrate that everybody can be an advocate. You don't have to work in a policy job. You don't have to understand policy or have any experience in the policy space. Advocacy is really telling your story and saying why a certain thing will be helpful or beneficial for your community, or why something might be harmful to your community, and why you want to, let a legislator know about the impact on their constituents. And you are the voices that again have that perspective. You spend a lot more time in their district than they do, and so they are very attuned to what their constituents are experiencing, and they understand that United Ways are at the forefront. So I just want to start with that. We have a little presentation to walk through, and would it be helpful for me to share this? Or Carol, you got it. Awesome. Great. Perfect. Fantastic. Great. So we can go to the next slide here, Carol. Thank you so much. So just want to give you take 30 seconds to let you know how our team is set up at United Way Worldwide. Paul, this is probably somewhat similar, somewhat different from when you were working. I'm guessing you're working with Steve, who we were just talking to today.
Yeah, very good. Yeah,
So stay very, very, very close touch with Steve, and worked with Steve a lot actually before I came over here when he was at United Way. So our team is structured along both kind of federal and state lines, right? So we have three kind of big focus areas. One is federal engagement. So that's all of our work with Congress and the administration. Barbara leads our work on that for our federal team, along with our director, Kelsey. And again, they do all of our work with the Hill, all of our work on key issues that we're seeing come down the pike, both from Congress and the administration, things that are happening at agencies, executive orders, all those different things. They're on it, and they support that, and we lean in a lot on both of those components, both those branches of government, because we think it's really critical to understand not just policy and bills getting passed in Congress, but the implementation of those bills, and also different opportunities that we have to influence, like requests for information on certain policy decisions, or to identify requests for proposals for different grant opportunities for our local United Ways or for United Way Worldwide. So those two branches of government, working them in tandem is very important. So Barbara leads that work for us. We also do state policy support, and this is where, again, our hyperlocal model comes into play. We have a great state policy team led by Anna Hasselblad and Shamoya Washington. Their goal is to ensure that our state folks have best-in-class resources and can learn from each other. We don't take positions on state policy. What we do is we trust our local United Ways to know their states and to know the issues that matter in their states and what they're fighting for. And you'll see different policy agendas across different states, but you'll see, a lot of similarities across them. But, some folks might be fighting for state appropriations here. Some folks might be fighting for a new early childhood program here. Some folks might be pushing against cuts to a particular program here. So it kind of depends on their state legislature and their setup. But what we do is ensure that they have the tools and resources to do what they do well, to raise their voices, and to learn from each other, and to know how to propose legislation and work with legislators and work with governors and state agencies. And then the final thing we do here is strategic coalition engagement. And this is taken on, it's always been really important. As you all know, everybody wants United Way to be a part of the coalitions. This is one of the beauties of being United Way. We get outreach all the time. Will you sign on to this letter? Will you be a part of this coalition? Will you join this thing? We need United Way on this, right? Because as I was saying earlier, right, we bring a lot to the table. We try to think about this really carefully. We work a lot with other peer large federated nonprofits, so we can all collectively understand, hey, what is this provision in the new tax bill mean? How are you interpreting this? What is your general counsel saying about this? Where do you see, what are you hearing on, what's going to happen with SNAP or Medicaid? What are you seeing it might be coming down when it comes to some of the provisions around charitable giving, right? So we work with a whole bunch of folks in this space. We share resources. We strongly believe that our collective efforts together are greater than the sum of their individual parts. So this coalition work is very, very important for us. We also don't want to recreate the wheel with every big federated nonprofit that has a lot of overlapping priorities. So we lift our voices together in a lot of ways as well. So we can go to the next slide, Carol. So you can see here, this is just a quick snapshot of our policy priorities for the 119th Congress. We put together policy priorities every 2 years for every Congress. Oh, okay, yeah, great. So for every Congress, we work with the United Way network to basically get a lot of input and identify what are the consensus priorities. Now, we know that folks in, the upper half of the East Coast might have different priorities than folks in the heart of the Midwest, and they may have different priorities than folks down in the Southeast. That's totally okay. What we're trying to do is capture the overlap in that Venn diagram here of the things that we're going to advocate for United Way, for the United Way network as a whole. So you can see some of these things captured. We bucket these under our 4 impact areas. So you can see with healthy community, a lot of this is about accessibility and affordability of care, fighting hunger, and mental health and substance use disorder supports. Those kind of span across our United Ways. On youth opportunity, this really is kind of the birth and child care space, up through post-secondary opportunities, so including early childhood, including K-12, including some of the community school wraparound things that we fight for. On financial security, a lot of this is workforce development, it is tax credits, it is housing, and it is support for some of the programs that we run, like voluntary income tax assistance, which is funded through the Treasury. And then finally, community resiliency. A lot of this is disaster. We do a tremendous amount, as you all know, on disaster response, and that's one of the most salient points to legislators because they know it is critical. But we also, are working on community and nonprofit infrastructure, as well as 211 funding that we're fighting for on the Hill. So that's just a snapshot. We have a whole document on this that we can share with you as well. It's like a 4-page document, but it just gives you a little bit of a more detailed rundown on what some of these particular policies look like. We can go to the next slide, Carol. So right now in 2025, obviously, we are in a very evolving and ever-changing environment. The last 4 months have seen a spate of executive orders. I believe it's over 115 at this point, aimed at a lot of changes, a lot of different things, a lot of things that we're working to interpret and understand the implications of for us and our communities. We've seen on the executive branch side a lot of efforts to restructure federal agencies, be it through reductions in force and cutting a lot of staff, cutting programs, eliminating programs or eliminating funding, freezing programs. We saw this recently with the elimination of a bunch of AmeriCorps programs, which our United Ways are a part of. We've seen it through the freezing of funds for the Emergency Food and Shelter Program, which a lot of our United Ways are a part of. We've heard rumblings about other things that might be, coming under the microscope around this. So it's a time of a lot of uncertainty, and there are also court cases that are pending on virtually all these issues. Some of them have led to injunctions, some of them have not. We saw that whole-scale federal funding freeze in January. That was then, that memo was rescinded, and we saw some programs come back and then turn back on the funding. We've seen this with the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program, or LIHEAP, where funding was turned off for a bit, then turned on. So it's definitely introduced uncertainty, especially because a lot of our United Ways work on these programs. They work on Head Start. We don't know what's going to happen with that. So we're in this like very, kind of unpredictable environment that is only added to by the cacophony of the media and all the things that are reported on a daily basis. So a lot of our job is to try to assess what do we know to be true, and how do we provide accurate and up-to-date information to our network. On the Hill side, there's a tremendous amount happening right now on budget reconciliation. This really big bill that the House is working to pass and send over to the Senate. This is going to touch on a number of President Trump's key priorities. It's most notably focused on reauthorizing the tax bill, of which we have some big things that are important in that tax bill, namely child tax credit, charitable deduction, and then also protecting our nonprofit business model. But this is also looking to cut a bunch of funding from the Energy and Commerce Committee, namely Medicaid there, and then from the Agriculture Committee, namely Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program there. So we are keeping a close eye on that. It's then also going to add funding for defense and border security. So this is a huge bill. This is not the budget bill. That's going to be appropriation season, which is going to be after this, and which has a deadline of September 30th. But the House and Senate are trying to get this bill done by August. And so our advocacy forum is at a very timely moment. It's possible they get this bill done prior, but it is also very likely that they will not. So right now the House is working on their version. The Senate will have a very different version. We're also working on federal investment in 211 because right now 911 it gets federal funding, which we support. 988 gets federal funding, which we support, but 211 doesn't get any. And 211 does a tremendous amount of work. They took in almost 17 million calls last year. And that number has gone up a lot year over year. So we're working on pushing for that, even though the environment's tough right now on the Hill. But that's going to be a big part of our advocacy day. And then we're keeping an eye on the Farm Bill because there's a lot of anti-hunger provisions in that too. So that's like a little bit of a 2025 snapshot. We can go to the next slide, Carol. And just some of the big things that we are keeping in mind right now about how to navigate this moment. And these are all things that we're going to touch on at the advocacy forum. But one is like the most important thing is that our strength is in our impact, and it is in our deeply local connectivity. We are an organization that, as the slide says, we are hyper local. We are deeply connected. We have relationships and trust, and that is something that folks cannot take away from us. That is something that is built in the 137 years that United Way has been around and is impacting. You know, we have 972 United Ways around the United States, and they touch 95% of communities in every congressional district. So that is something, and our impact that we're having in those communities really is our strength in this moment. And so we're encouraging our local United Ways to continue to lean into that rather than feeling like they need to, you know, knee-jerk react to everything the media reports on. And it's hard. It's a very hard moment. It's very easy to spiral and think that the sky is falling. And what we're trying to do is be thoughtful in our engagement in this moment. And as you can see here, there are a few kind of key things we're abiding by. One is, you know, assessing the signal versus the noise. There's a lot of noise. We're trying to figure out where's the truth here. What do we know to be true? How do we think this is going to impact us? How do we center the facts? And how do we make sure we're prepared for different scenarios without overly speculating and spinning and spiraling too much to where it takes us away from our ability to impact our communities? Secondarily, we want to make sure we ground everything we do in impact and just be careful of reacting too quickly without understanding things and potentially coming off in an overly politicized way, which could open us up to a lot of risk as a nonpartisan organization. And then third, we're trying to be really thoughtful on how we engage publicly versus privately. A lot of our work on the Hill is happening behind closed doors because we found that to be more effective in certain ways. There are a lot of Republican lawmakers who, you know, there might be certain things the administration is doing that impact us. And rather than yelling and screaming at the administration in public, we're talking to Republican lawmakers and they're like, yeah, we agree with you. And it's easier for us to hear this from you and from a local United Way, and then be able to go behind the scenes to the administration and talk to them about it and hopefully make some progress rather than playing out in public, because the administration just doubles down in public. And Republicans do not want to make enemies of the administration right now. So that is really, you know, one of the things we're thinking about is like, how do we position our lawmakers to help us? And how do we show up as partners with them at this time, while also then raising our voice on issues where we think we can make a disproportionately high impact, like the child tax credit. We just put a great op-ed out by our CEO, Angela Williams, on advocating for a strengthened and expanded child tax credit. That was in Newsweek yesterday. So you know, we're trying to be really thoughtful about this because, again, United Way, part of the reason why we do have the trust we have is because we have been thoughtful about this for a long time, and we don't just react to every single thing that folks are asking us to. We stay grounded in our values and we're thoughtful about it. So with that, we can go to the next slide here, Carol. This is just a quick summary of some of the things that we're doing for the United Way Network. We're working on, we have a federal policy page on United Way Online, which you all can access, as well as a frequently asked questions guide that kind of talks about, it links to a number of different resources for understanding this current moment, for understanding implications of things for nonprofits. It has resources from some of our key partners, and it has different actions that people can take on key issues and more. We also have congressional engagement materials there in case you want to reach out to the offices of your legislators. We have contact information for them. We have email templates. We have talking points. It's all there. And as I mentioned, resources from our trusted partners. We host monthly briefings for the network. And you are all welcome to join those. We always give a federal policy update at the top, but then we touch on other really relevant issues. So we can make sure that you have the link to sign up. The way that we promote these is through our public policy newsletter, which Barbara leads. That comes out every Monday. So we provide updates on what's happening in DC through that, but we also promote our different events through that. So we do at least one briefing per month, and we try to make sure it's on a very relevant topic so folks can stay informed. And we definitely invite you all to those. We're doing a lot in terms of engaging with the Hill on tax policy, the child tax credit, our policy priorities, Medicaid and SNAP. Just this week we met with the Speaker's office on the House side, the Majority Leader's office on the Senate side, and a number of other key folks from the House Ways and Means Committee, the Senate Finance Committee, who are all really playing a big role in this bill right now. So we're doing this on a pretty regular basis, and we're also engaging our members to send letters to Congress on a lot of our key issues, which you all can take part in as well, and we encourage you to. It's very easy. We have the letters already written. You just enter in your information and click send. It takes about 60 seconds and it sends the letters to the offices of your representatives and senators. And that's all on that United Way online page. Finally, we're doing a big campaign called United is the Way, where we are doing proactive relationship building meetings with the Hill. And so we're involving our local United Ways in that. We found that to be a really great way in this environment to proactively build relationships at a time when things feel very partisan and things feel very divisive. We just set up these meetings and kind of educate new staff about United Way and also let them know resources that we have for them to share with constituents. So we're very busy and active right now, and because we know that the moment calls for it. So Carol, we can go to the next slide. Great.
Okay.
And with that, I'll turn it over to Barbara to share a little bit more about our upcoming Advocacy Forum on Capitol Hill Day.
Thank you so much, Josh. And Carol, thanks for advancing the slides. I also wanted just to say that some of the resources that Josh mentioned will be shared as part of the recap. And Carol, I'll make sure that we also include the child tax credit article, because I did not include that when we started the conversation. So really excited today to be talking to you all. Some folks that have registered or some that are joining us today. I know I've seen you at an advocacy forum, and also for some of my former colleagues, I know I worked with you on them, or you helped me do my meetings and visits and learn from each other while participating in the advocacy forum. So as Josh said, everyone is an advocate, and so this year we're really leaning into that because we know now more than ever we need everyone to be joining with us. To be talking about the issues that are important to your community and to your local United Way. And as was mentioned before, we also can't fundraise our way out of it or volunteer our way out of some of the challenges that we're working to address. So we are delighted that we are having our advocacy forum for 2025. And this year it is in July 7th to the 9th. For folks who have joined in the past, we're really also very lucky to have worked on the budget because the registration is $100 to attend. And we are definitely making it worth your while. I'm going to share a little bit about some of the sessions that we're doing, but what our main focus for this event is also about policy as partnership. And that also is reinforcing how everyone has a role to play as an advocate, to tell your story, to lift up again, as I shared, the importance of things that are in your community and working across the spectrum with elected leaders, with staffers, with community partners, and everyone else who is involved in the work that you do or have done in the past. So as this slide says, you're going to have actionable insights, but instead of just focusing on federal, which is what we've primarily done in previous advocacy forums, because we've ramped up the work that we're doing and the support for our network, we're also going to be doing work that covers and supports the state work. So leaning into that area of work as well, and then also highlighting best practices and hearing from our colleagues across the network to share what they're doing and what they've learned. And that is really, really exciting, as well as having some other special guest speakers. So if you would like, you can advance the slide. That'd be great, Carol. So for those that are joining us either remotely or well, virtually both times, we're doing it's a 3-day event, which is normally for our advocacy forum. So on July 7th, when people arrive, we're going to have some opening sessions and a welcome reception. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the July 8th, the actual sessions that we're going to be doing and some of the content that we're covering. And then on July 9th, that's when we're going to be going and doing our hill visits, which was mentioned before as a highlight. It's wonderful when you're actually on the hill. For most of us, when you get there, you have a feel. It's just a part. It's very memorable, and it's part of being a citizen and being involved. And you're with your colleagues from your state as well as the network. So we're going to be doing Hill Day visits. This time around, we're also having a lunch in the Hart Building, which is one of the buildings on the Senate side. And that is also a great time to take a little bit of a break and also to hear from some special guests who are going to be stopping in to talk a little bit to the United Way members that are participating. One other thing I'd like to share, which I forgot to mention, is we have outgrown the space that we have used at United Way Worldwide, which is the Mary Gates Center for those folks from the network who maybe are more recently attending advocacy forums. So right now we're over 200 and we're looking to grow it to more than that. So there's definitely time for you to register and space available for you to join us. And we are going to be at, I think the hotel is listed. I'm just forgetting it at this moment, but I'll make sure I share it with you all. I know that the link is part of the resources. Carol, if you advance the slide, I can talk a little bit about some of the sessions. So every year after the advocacy forum, we do survey similar to what I know Project Next is also going to be doing, or United Way Next is going to be doing. It's really important to get feedback from our members and to hear like what would be helpful for them. And then also talking throughout the year about maybe some of the requests we're getting. And so that is what has helped us to build out the advocacy forum sessions this time. So we are going to be looking, if you see some of them that are listed, I'm just going to give a little bit more context. The one for the federal policy overview and updates, that's going to build off of a little bit of what Josh shared previously about the current moment we're in, also looking at the look ahead where we know things are right now. In July, it will be looking at where the reconciliation bill is, maybe have things changed, how are those actions going to be impacting our policy priorities and the communities we serve. So we're going to be providing a little bit more of a deeper dive into that. And one of the other items that we have definitely heard from our network is also about the messaging in challenging political environment. So again, giving resources and hearing from each other about what is working and maybe a little bit more support in that space for people to do some workshopping. We also are going to be doing providing resources to help folks on the ground doing the work they need to do. For leveraging state policy, we're going to be looking at how to use state policy and to leverage it for revenue diversification. And that's been very interesting for our network as a whole to be looking at how do we diversify our revenue, and then also sharing up some success stories and more importantly, lessons learned, the good, the bad, and the ugly when going through that process to help their peers. We're also going to be talking again about like the policy impact and coalition network. Again, as Josh has shared, we all know how important it is and how United Ways are asked to be involved in coalitions. But again, what's the best way to approach that? Hearing from peers to share their experiences. And then so that when you walk away from this, you are even in a better shape to have even more impact to advance the work that we're all doing at United Way. Again, let me just see if there's anything else. The theme that's running through this all is that for our sessions, we're also looking at them to be very interactive, as well as making it something that individuals can walk away when they get back to their community and begin to use, as well as things that can help them as they move forward in their work. And then to remind everybody that for us, we're looking to make this as accessible for everyone. So we have individuals from the 211 network. 211 is the help and human services helpline that individuals can call and access for connections to resources in their community when they're looking for maybe support for as a caregiver, as a veteran, or to support a veteran, or someone who has a challenge with utility assistance and everything. So it's a place for people to go. So we want to make sure that the 211 network, because we work with them a lot, they're going to be joining us. We, I believe, have some folks from Women United groups that are joining us. So we're going to have different tracks, if you will, so that people can either be for individuals that are just starting and want to like learn a little bit more, and we're here for them, for you all. And we will have sessions like Advocacy 101, what does that mean, as well as some other ones. And then for folks that have come to advocacy forums, they do this on a regular basis, we'll have special sessions for them as well. But throughout all of our programming, we want to reinforce that policy, again, is a partnership. So again, how do we create that connection and build those relationships across our network to engage everyone and to advocate and make change. So that's what I wanted to share about this slide and some of the sessions that we're having. I will say that for folks that are really interested, on our website for the advocacy forum, it will have more information about the sessions, and or if you have questions, you can definitely contact us. Carol, would you like to advance the slide? Okay, so this is, as was mentioned, and I know for you all, things in Washington are a bit in change. And so right now, when we are doing our advocacy forum and we are meeting with folks and getting them ready to join us, we find that it is good practice to have about 3 asks or 3 items to lift up when we're doing the meetings on the Hill. And so for us right now, we are building and we will be sharing these 3 items. Protect Medicaid and SNAP, which we know is, as was mentioned, that will be something that will now continue to be something to watch with all the changes that are being proposed. And so we're just watching them and weighing in to make sure that our communities have the resources and are protected as much as possible and can access those programs. Really excited to see where the child tax credit and enhancing and expanding that will be when we're doing our advocacy forum. We know that the child tax credit and the earned income tax credit are 2 programs that really support individuals as well as families and can help them with their financial security and economic mobility. And then investing in 211, which I mentioned briefly. So right now, these are our policy priorities asks. We will be doing a deeper dive on all of these 3 items, as well as sharing a bit more information to help people get prepared for the advocacy forum on June 10th. I know that Carol and Ivy have that link as well. So if you're interested, you can definitely register for that and you'll get more information and resources. And I would also be remiss if I didn't share that if you are thinking about the advocacy forum, but you've never done this before, it might be a little intimidating to you. First off, United Way, the policy team, we're here for you. We want you to be here because, to be honest, you are an expert. You already are an advocate. You just might not be viewing yourself as that. And your voice is so critical at this time. We are also holding office hours on May 29th. And that's for anyone to come and ask a question. It can be, and every question is welcome. So with regards to the Advocacy Forum and Hill Day, if you have questions, you want answers, we'll make sure you have that as well. Would you like to advance the slide, Carol? Okay. So I think the next ones, again, I don't necessarily have to go through all these because I want to make sure we have time for Q&A, but I wanted to make sure that for folks that are interested in joining us, we have found also that when our local United Ways make the request for the meeting, it resonates much, and it's better from the office perspective. You're a constituent, and you might already have a relationship with them. And then it's just a smoother process too, because you get to control when you're scheduling them on your calendar, and it's just very much more helpful. If you need assistance, we're here to help you. But I wanted to make sure that you had this information as a guide for the future. So this information is also shared as a resource for folks when they register for the advocacy forum. So if you want to go to the next slide, I think the next slide, again, I wanted to make sure you had it in case you wanted to reflect back to it. These are just some good points about when you're scheduling a meeting, like how to prepare for it. Again, keep it concise, and then just make sure you have some data points to share or a story about the impact. And we just wanted to make sure that you have what you need to be successful. I know that for some folks who have joined us in the past doing meetings, once we go to the Q&A, if there's anything you'd like to share about what's worked for you, again, that would probably be that would be most welcome. But again, it's just, we want to make sure you have all the tools to make this as successful as possible for you. And this is actually a visit that was done with some folks from Pennsylvania, just looking at who's around there. So, just to give you a little sample of who it is, and also just to let you know that this meeting was with staffers, and staffers are sometimes even more critical than the member of Congress, because they're the ones that do the briefing for the member. They're the ones that keep the work moving forward, and they're the ones that have the questions and can help us when we're doing our work. So never underestimate the power of a staffer, and also the journey that they will go in their career. So can you advance the slide, Carol? Okay, we're almost at the end. So some of these information and resources have been shared with Carol and Ivy as a recap. They'll be sharing it afterwards. But the one thing is the public policy newsletter. I wanted to make sure that you all do subscribe to that. It's open to everyone, and it is the place where we share updates, as I've mentioned. And then if you have questions moving forward, the policy team is here to support you. And we can advance the slide because I think we covered all of them, the mobilizations. So these are the resources for folks who are looking to attend the advocacy forum. We have a website. We've done a briefing that we can share with folks, and it usually is shared on the website. And then these are some of the upcoming tools and resources that we were going to be sharing. There's going to be a recess guide that will again include how to do a meeting with walkthrough steps that you can walk through. It will have information on the priorities, a little bit more detail, and then also links for you to access state data, because it's always helpful to come with state data or community data or district data, like programs, information that you know from your community that will reinforce the importance of this program or a potential change in a program that is being proposed. Also, there will be a link for folks to schedule their meetings. We know that that will be really helpful, especially when we're looking at coordination and seeing what might be missed at this time. And then also we have the office hours and some other upcoming events, just to make sure that everyone's prepared and feels well equipped to share your story and the impact and the good work that you are doing, or things that are a concern to you. Okay, Carol? Okay, so now we're at the questions part. I know we covered a lot. So if anyone has questions or things that we did not cover that you'd like us to bring up, please, we're here for you. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Barbara and Josh. My name is Ann Fox, and I am the incoming chair of the board for United Way Next. And I am, along with our colleague, Barbara Wentworth, will be managing the questions and answer period right now. Barbara, you want to introduce yourself and your role with the United Way Next?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Barb Wentworth. I'm a member of United Way Next, a former local United Way exec, and very excited to be working with the Engage and Exchange work group. And just to put in a plug, as Carol did for that survey at the end of this session, to please do give us your feedback because it helps us think about sessions for the future as well as understanding how the sessions have gone for the present. So thank you.
Great, great. So I've got some questions that I've received during your presentations. So I'll start there and then give folks a chance to raise their hand or put another question in the chat if you'd like. And Barb is monitoring the chat, so we'll try to get all your questions answered. So my first question came in from Dick Aft, and it's for you, Josh. His question is, he's curious to know, we read what politicians are doing with the budget and the direction the budget is going, but Dick's question is more, what are you hearing from the staffers that you have relationships with about the budget?
Yeah, great question, Dick. And I will double emphasize Barbara's point that staffers are oftentimes the most important people to have relationships with because they do have a lot of really good information and they're often the ones doing most of the work. So this is where things stand with the budget reconciliation bill. What we're hearing across the board is that this bill is likely going to pass the House next week. It will have some changes from where it is right now, but it's likely that the moderates who are holding out are going to get in line. This is not a guarantee. Now, there's been a bunch of talk right now about some House Freedom Caucus folks who are the more conservative faction of the conference. There's been talk about them being upset that Medicaid cuts aren't going far enough and wanting more. However, I think that there's going to be a lot of pressure on House Republicans to get this out on a party line vote. A tremendous amount of pressure, both from the Speaker's office and from the president. And so I think that next week is going to be a very intense week for those folks. And I would say it's likelier than not, though not a guarantee, that they will put some sort of bill out by the end of the week, likely. Or if not, it will be right after the Memorial Day recess, where the rubber is really going to meet the road is in the Senate, and the Senate is going to have their own bill. And it's going to include some stuff in the House bill, but it's really going to look different. And in order to get something passed, the Senate is kind of like, House, it's really cute what you're doing, but what we do is what's going to be able to get passed. And we're going to send you back something and you're going to have to swallow it. So that's like, we're obviously keeping a close eye on the House bill, and we're looking at any provisions that are positive that we should lift up or negative that we should really speak out against. And trying to flag those both on the House side, but really trying to flag it for the Senate side. Because right now the Senate is going to have a lot of power in determining what this bill looks like. They have a bunch of folks who don't want big Medicaid cuts. They have some folks who've said the bill is not extreme enough. You already have 3 or 4 senators over there that are going to be really tough to get on board, and so they're gonna have to figure something out. And that's really where we are keeping our attention. That's why we are basically meeting with Senate offices like all this week. In particular, the Senate Finance Committee and Republicans in the Senate Finance Committee, those people, go look them up online and see who they are. And if they're one of your senators, you should reach out to them because they are really going to control a lot of this and what this looks like. And so that's what all their staffs have told us, is that, they're going to have a different bill. That's what all of the insider reporting is. That's what our consultants are hearing as well. So we're keeping a close eye on that. It'll be interesting what they cobble together and how different it looks from what the House has in. But usually the Senate will kind of strip out some of the House's most egregious components. But we never know, and we're in different times. So we're actively working it, and we're going to be doing a lot of engagement with Senate Republicans moving forward. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Great response. Barbara, question for you also from Dick. His question is, what are we learning from our non-US system members?
So Dick and Barbara, like about policy and advocacy in general, or you mean like the 211s or the Women United people who are joining us? I'm just, could you give a little more clarity on that?
Oh, well, Barbara, thanks for your presentation. My clarity is that what's going on in your area right now is having a great deal of impact on the countries in which we have system partners. And I just wonder if what you're hearing from them is helpful in what you're doing with our U.S. government relations programs.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate the clarity. I will start, and then I might want to ask Josh also to weigh in, because the work that I focus on is mostly in the U.S. So I don't have as much interaction with the United Ways that work and support the other across the network where we are globally. I do also know that there is some crossover as well, because our investors and our corporate partners also don't just operate in the US. But I know that there is a lot of change going on, as we've talked about. And so there is some concern about also how and when to weigh in and be supportive and lift up your voice. But Josh, I was wondering if there's anything you'd like to add, just because of the maybe some of the meetings and conversations that you've been on that are broader than the federal policy work that I'm doing.
Yeah, absolutely, Barbara, and great question, Dick. I mean, the biggest concern is the shuttering of USAID. And the freezing or elimination of grants for international development coming out of USAID, because a lot of the places where we operate, there's development work happening where there were USAID dollars being invested, and that helped both with the actual work, but also with the relationships with those countries. And so that's some of the biggest stuff that we've heard. I think also in general, just like the people have some big questions about sort of the overall posturing towards the world, and how we are as a country engaging in long-term relationships and alliances that have been around for a long time, and changes that are happening there. So there are concerns there as well. Yeah. And that's mostly what I've heard to date. We'll have a chance to interact with more of our international partners themselves at our Together We Thrive conference, which is going to be in June in Orlando. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I have one last question. So we know that United Way Worldwide does not do any lobbying of elected officials, but to what extent are you lobbying or conversing with major political donors that there may be some crossover with?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so actually for some clarity's sake, we actually do lobby federal officials and elected officials. It is totally okay to lobby. And I know that the lobbying rules can be confusing, but basically, the only prohibition that we have on lobbying is we can't use federal funds to lobby. So we can't like use a grant funded position from the federal government, which we don't really have any right now, for lobbying purposes. But I mean, the things that we do on the Hill, those are all lobbying. We generally, because lobbying and advocacy are effectively interchangeable terms. Lobbying basically just means talking to a policymaker or their staff and making the case for a particular bill or a particular grant. So something where you're influencing a decision that they're going to make on either policy or on funding. We don't have to. There's like a threshold where if above a certain percentage of your work is lobbying, then you need to register as a lobbyist. But no one on our team is a registered lobbyist, just because we don't hit that threshold. It's about 20-25% of your overall work. But we kind of spread things out, and we also have lobbyists as well, that we hire to help us out with that. So just so folks know, like, any nonprofit can lobby. It's just you can't use federal dollars to lobby. That's like the big prohibition. So we do that. But we also, when it comes to engaging with like political donors and that sort of thing, there are folks like on our board and other people who have like interests in United Way, who are also outside of that political donors who we work with, just because they have an interest in, they do kind of like broad philanthropy. So they do a number of different types of philanthropy, and some of it might be political, but then some of it's not. We don't engage with them on the political side necessarily, but we have folks across the political spectrum. So we have people who are, Republicans and Democrats, who we work with on our board. We have a number of folks who are, kind of big donors to the Republicans and big donors to the Democrats. We don't engage with them on that partisan work, just because of our nonpartisan status, but we do engage with a lot of folks who also, outside of their work with us, also are engaged in that political space.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah.
That is all the questions we have thus far. If anybody has a question they'd like to pose, we have 30 seconds left, I think. But I'll turn it back to Paul, I think, to close this out. And I want to add my thanks to the Engage and Exchange Committee for pulling these together, to Josh and Barbara for joining us today and giving such a great presentation. And and the exchange. So Paul, I'll give it to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. And again, thank you to Josh and to Barbara for the work you do day in and day out. It is so valuable to not only, United Way, but all our communities, right? And so we appreciate what you do every day. We appreciate you've got the Hill Day coming and the work you're doing to get that ready. So thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules to share that with us. We know we had a lot more folks sign up for this, so they'll see this as a video, so they'll get to hear your presentation as well. So we're appreciative of all the time and effort you put into this as well. I'll close by just saying, for the folks out here, as members of United Way Next, we're celebrating our 35th anniversary, and Dick Aft on this call, he's one of the founding members, right? So Dick's been here from the beginning. We're celebrating United Way Next. We're celebrating our connection to community, to local United Ways, and to all our individual members. And one of the things that's been happening is we're beginning to see tributes to folks who really made a difference in your United Way career, right? They impacted you in some positive way. We're beginning to see tributes to that. So for all our members, if you want to think about who had an positive impact on your career, that you may want to give an additional gift to United Way Next this year in our 35th celebration to tribute them and honor them for their legacy, we would appreciate that as well. And Carol, I don't know if you have any last final words to close us off with.
Yeah, just a reminder that we have the survey at the end. So when you close out your Zoom room, that will be there. Ivy will be sending out the follow-up email with the recording link for this session, along with all of the materials that Barbara and Josh shared with us, some of which are still coming. So we'll put that together and have it out by Monday. And I just want to say thanks to Paul DeBassio, Ann Fox, Josh, Barbara, and Barb Wentworth for being here today and helping facilitate this great conversation. It was very inspiring for me. And I just say we hope that Ivy's feeling better, because we miss her when she's not here. So to all of you, thanks so much for your involvement in United Way Next, and do keep us in mind if there's anything that we can do to support you as you're out and about serving across the community, whether it's as a United Way professional or as an alum or retiree in your volunteer work on boards and in the community. So thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.